So it's my great pleasure and honor to introduce Emmanuelle Charpentier today. As it was said, Emmanuelle had her first scientific steps at the Pasteur Institute. And I was able to dig up this old picture from the Cours de Bactériologie from 1994. And so as a little game for everyone, here, can you see Emmanuelle? I'll leave you 2 seconds. Who has found her? Here she is, if you see my mouse. And so, like Stuart Cole said, Emmanuelle at that time was doing her PhD in the lab of Patrice Courvalin on antibiotic resistance in listeria, and she had a very productive time at the Pasteur Institute, and I hope all you new graduates were as productive as Emmanuelle. And Emmanuelle wasn't just a brilliant scientist already during her PhD, but she was also someone who knew how to have fun. And sorry, Emmanuelle, I have to show this, but this is what happens when you come back to the place where you did your PhD. And here you can see Emmanuelle actually manipulating old sequencing gels, type of equipment that most of you probably have never touched. Yeah, this is a testimony of the old times. You also know that Emmanuelle is a very international scientist, and so after her stay at the Pasteur Institute, she left to do a postdoc abroad, and I'm sure that many of you today are also contemplating opportunities abroad. And so she first left to New York, first at the Rockefeller University, then at the NYU Medical Center, until she got her independent PI position at the University of Vienna, where she stayed for quite a few years. After that, she went to Sweden in Umeå, then in Germany, Braunschweig, and finally at the Max Planck in Berlin. And throughout this international scientific career, Emmanuelle has produced exciting scientific research, and including these 2 amazing papers that really were landed in the CRISPR field, and I can say that I have personally relied a lot on these papers and read them many times over for my own research. And so, as you all know, Emmanuelle received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. I think the ceremony is actually next week, so thank you, Emmanuelle, for again taking the time to be here. But I have to say that if I am jealous of something, Emmanuelle, it's not a Nobel Prize, it's the fact that you got to meet all these Hollywood stars during this breakthrough award, and you can see her with Cameron Diaz here. So congratulations again, Emmanuelle, for all your achievements, and I will leave you the floor.
Yes, so thank you very much, David. I could not see the slides, but so I could see the old pictures of myself, but I'm sure I did not change, right? In 25 years already. So I'm very happy to be here with you today, except that unfortunately I cannot be in person at the Pasteur Institute. I wish I would be able to see you all, but I just see initials on my screen. But I'm sure a number of you are here today. My warmest congratulations on the milestone that you have achieved with your PhD degree. As I said, it's really a pleasure to celebrate with you this great achievement of your life, even if it's by video. I surely thank Stuart and also Vincenzo for the kind invitation, and I guess maybe some other colleagues were behind this invitation, to tell you a few words about my personal journey, but I'm not that sure whether I will have time to go into it. I suggest that in any case, after my few words that may be quite long at the end of the day, you can ask me some questions and I can reply. I have been asked over the last, let's say, since 2013 to say a lot about myself, so I tend to always repeat myself, and I'm going to say a bit something else today. at least I would like to give you some essentials and facts and thoughts that you can take with you. Before I start, I want also to say that we had some technical issues because of this very nice program, Microsoft Teams. So I was very happy because yesterday, this morning, I was sent an email address, pasteur.fr, an account. So I didn't know how to react to it. Unfortunately, I was told that then it was only for this day. I thought for a moment that 25 years after I've been left Pasteur, actually 24 years after I've been left Pasteur, that I was welcomed again, but okay. So I'm very happy as well because I see a number of my colleagues and I still have some old friends at Pasteur. So I cannot see you. I wish I would have been able also to celebrate with you this event of today. But I hope to be able at least to come soon to Pasteur to maybe celebrate also what has happened to me recently, because I'm waiting for a big party. It would be nice if you could organize this. And maybe nevertheless I can show up next year at the next celebration of the PhD students just to say hi. So as Stewart said, bravo, it's a great achievement. Maybe you think that this was the hardest part of your life, but so the bad news of today is to tell you that maybe this is the easiest part of your life. But I'm sure you will be able to go ahead with your life with success. So 25 years ago, actually, exactly in December 5, 1995, I was defending my PhD thesis at the Pasteur Institute, and actually Stewart was one of my examiners. I have to say that it's true, I was productive in my field of research, that was medical microbiology, but I remember that I did not get the congratulations of the jury, but I did not take it personal. And yet I'm in front of you today, and obviously I'm still a scientist. So for those who think that they did not perform the best they could perform at their PhD defense, there is still hope. It's not the end of it. What I remember as well 25 years ago for me is that it was a memorable day because this was during the strikes of 1995. So I guess some of you may have, or maybe most of you may have experienced this, I think 1 or 2 years ago in France. And the day of my thesis, this was a Black Tuesday. So there was no RER, no subway, no bus. And so I had some friends who had to walk for 2 hours to reach the room, the seminar room where my PhD defense was taking place. And my parents had to wake up at 5 a.m. to take the car to drive to Pasteur. So maybe I was also nervous this day to make sure that everything will be okay and that the event will happen and that the examiners will be able to be present. Also, the fact to be here in front of you 25 years later allowed me to remember that 25 years ago, times were really different. I mean, the World Wide Web was just starting. The emails were existing, but there were no PDFs. If you wanted to do your literature, you needed to go to the library of the Pasteur Institute. That was a great library, but I remember having spent a number of days in this library searching for papers and taking the big books and making the effort to bring them to the photocopy machine and photocopy a lot of articles. This was the life 25 years ago. Also, what I remember is that my master thesis was about sequencing gene-conferring resistance to the antibiotic tetracycline in the gram-positive human pathogen Listeria monocytogenes. And this took a number of months. So this was in the lab of Patrice Corvalin. And I guess at that time, I had no idea that the world would be as it is now. And I think it's really important that you reflect on this because you may be overwhelmed by a lot of information. And I think it's difficult for you to really digest all the articles. You have a lot of journals that have come up on the way since 25 years, but you have really the luck to be able to do science in a completely different angle than 25 years ago. I mean, with all the high throughput technologies for sequencing, CRISPR, other, screening technologies, imaging technologies, and so on and so forth. Huge advancement in science with really maybe sophisticated technology, so it's not easy for you, but a way to approach science completely differently. And really, it's a chance. I wish I would be a student in our days, because it's really a great time where you can answer biological questions which you could not answer the same way 25 years ago. So really, I think it's a great time for you to continue in science, whether it's in the academic field or in biotech or pharmaceutical industry. Even if you decide to do something other than science, but work around science, at least it's really a great time. Now I'm obviously a product of the Pasteur Institute, and I never forgot about it. Actually, maybe the people who worked with me in the different countries where I pursued my career always recognize me as an annoying person, always referring to my training at the Pasteur Institute. That I think is really a training referring to basic science, to also having learned the integrity of science also, for sure, because I'm a microbiologist, so everything that is about biosafety and the good rules of practice and really the value of science. And so this brings me to talk a bit about Louis Pasteur, because actually for me it was important to be at the Pasteur Institute. My mother is turning 90 years old soon. And so she was actually, a scholar adolescent during the Second World War under the regime of Vichy, Pétain. And, at that time it was different than now. So the kids, they needed every morning to repeat and, a kind of some words, for the nation, for the inspiration, etc. And in her case, it was for a couple of years, always repeating some words of Louis Pasteur, actually. And I was very surprised, because even now she knows these sentences by heart. And this was some sentences of a speech that Louis Pasteur gives during the inauguration of the plaque that was affixed to his birthplace in his house when he was born in Dole in France, so on July 14, 1883. And on the plaque, I think it's written something like, here was born Louis Pasteur, actually who was born in December 27, 1822. So it's now really 2 centuries ago. And on this occasion, he gave his speech in which he paid tribute to his parents. So I'm not going to give you the speech. You can find it on the internet. It's maybe not that easy. And for me, this was really the few sentences that my mother knew, by heart, that allowed me to find this speech. So it was a speech for sure on the tribute of his parents. So he mentioned the greatness of science, the greatness of motherland, the grandeur de la patrie. I guess for those of you who are international, you know that in France it's a lot about grandeur de la patrie. But I mean, okay, this was the case at that time. But it was really about, greatness of science, your duty to also serve, the motherland, also with the achievements that you will, you will have. It was mentioning perseverance, patience, long effort. So this is what, his parents had taught him in a way. Also, he was mentioning the tenacity in the daily work. So, everything that I think is important for a scientist. And he was mentioning also the admiration of great men and great things. It was coming from his father. And he had a quote, and I heard it a couple of times from my mother. And it was in French, regarder en haut, apprendre au-delà, chercher à s'élever toujours, voilà ce que tu m'as enseigné. So he was saying this in tribute to his father. So in English is look up, learn beyond, seek always to rise. This is what you taught me. And I think it's really important because you received a PhD degree. At my time, there was no celebration. It was not like the Anglo-Saxon way where, you have the celebration of degrees. Since then, I got the chance to be part of celebration of pre-graduates and graduates. And I thought that actually it's important to celebrate because at the end of the day, you receive the degree. It's something that is part of you. And I think you have now, a responsibility and you have a duty to represent, the field of academy. Not everyone has a chance to study. And as much as it maybe sound difficult, it was difficult for all of us as a PhD. Every scientist had to go through the PhD term, so maybe it was more and less difficult depending on the labs you ended up or your personality or your project of research. But now you have the responsibility to really represent education, represent what you learn at the university, and to really carry on and be an example actually. So it's important that you understand that you have a title. It's something. You're a doctor, and that not everyone has a chance to have this title and to be able to pursue in a field where where it's really nice and I guess also fun to be a scientist, even though you can go through a number of hurdles like I did, but it's another thing. I wanted to also take the chance to tell a number of quotes of Pasteur. So also this, you can find this on Google, but I think it's important. So maybe for those who didn't know about these quotes, you can go back after my talk and enjoy them. So there is one quote that says, "In the fields of observation, chance favors only the prepared mind. Science knows no country because knowledge belongs to humanity and is a torch which illuminates the world. Let me tell you the secret that has led to my goal. My strength lies solely in my tenacity. There does not exist a category of science to which one can give the name applied science. There are sciences and the applications of science bound together as a fruit of the tree which bears it." One that I like, messieurs, in French at some point he said, "Messieurs, ce sont les microbes qui auront le dernier mot. Gentlemen, these are the microbes who will have the last word." So I guess in the time of pandemic, we know what this means. The role of the infinitely small in nature is infinitely great. Inspiration is the impact of a fact on a well-prepared mind. Intuition is given only to the person who has undergone long preparation to receive it. There is another quote which has nothing to see with science, but I thought you will enjoy it because for sure you're in France at the Pasteur Institute. And he was French, for sure, Louis Pasteur. "A bottle of wine contains more philosophy than all the books in the world." So I believe he said all of this. So we really, I hope you enjoyed some of the quotes so you can find more. And I think it's important that you read them. So as a matter of fact, I remember, at least with regard to Louis Pasteur, having been at the Pasteur Institute, when I was frustrated during my time as a PhD student, I like to go to a place that was open from time to time. I don't think if it's open from time to time as it was before. And this is the funeral chapel where Louis Pasteur rests. So at the time, there were some hours during the day where it was open, and I was going there, and I was complaining to, I was, like trying. I was upset and frustrated, and I was trying to release all my frustrations in front of this, where Louis Pasteur was resting. Maybe it served me. I don't know. Something I wanted to go back to, and it's also related to these quotes. This is about yeah, the fact that you may have understood by now that, you know, through your achievements, you have, you know, worked a lot, and science, it's about hard work. It's about tenacity. It's about being perseverant. For sure, it's about curiosity. At the end of the day, you know, consider to not you know, see this, let's say, this special task as a 9-to-5 job. I think it's really more than this. I don't like specifically to say passion. I think it's, you know, you have to. My father was a gardener, and you know, the gardeners cultivate their gardens. So you have to cultivate your own garden. Things come also through curiosity and through a bit of obsession. But at the end of the day, you know, the joy and the wish to know more, to really resolve problems. You know, we have, as a scientist, we know that it's all about puzzles, and we have to resolve the puzzles. Sometimes we have to find the questions that allows to resolve these puzzles, and you need to have, you know, certain traits of personalities which you may not realize, but you have developed during the time as a PhD student. You have grown, you have, you know, even though you were sometimes desperate, you know, repeating the same experiments or going nowhere. If I want to reassure you, at the time of the CRISPR-Cas discovery, so really everything came clear in my mind. It was in 2008, so I was in a way 40 years old, and I just accepted a position at Umeå University, a position that was not a life position, that was a position EMBL model, so 5 years and maybe plus two, maybe I would have to leave Umeå. And it was at the time where I was really perseverant. I was continuing all my you know, my projects, specifically in the world of RNA, and actually I had a number of projects, and that were making my students a bit frustrating. Not all the projects were working, even though you know, all the projects had potential, but you know, things take time. And at the end of the day, one you know, looking for small RNAs that would have a biological role in bacteria. At the end of the day, there was one RNA that was very successful, tracer RNA. But you know, it was really at the time where I was at the merger of really wondering, you know, whether something good would happen to me. And as a matter of fact, with the study of this tracer RNA, at the beginning we were going in a direction that obviously was not the good direction. To realize that, you know, the direction was really to go on, you know, linking this RNA to CRISPR. So, you know, it's just to say that you may have realized that during the time as a PhD, you entertain a lot, all your thinking of, you know, you want to go somewhere, no, you go somewhere else, and all your life will be like this. You have always to stay open. Open to the unexpected. This is also one of the, you know, what the quotes of Pasteur said. You learn to prepare yourself. You receive an education. You have the methodology that allows you to do things differently. So, you know, take this as a chance that maybe others do not have to have had through such a training, or so challenging yourself. At the end of the day, I could tell you a lot about my own experience, but my experience may not be the best example, and it does not say anything, because, you know, I went through a number of hurdles, maybe more hurdles than a number of people. I could get through these hurdles, but, you know, my experience was also linked to opportunities that I had. You would have other opportunities. You have to always have your eyes open. But you need to know one thing, as much as, you know, you make your life, you're responsible of your own life, you make your own journey. But don't forget to be thankful for the structures that allowed you to do a PhD, to have your degree, all the structures that will allow you to evolve in the future. as much as in the future you will have to fight a lot because you will not be in a protective environment as you are now. You will have to make your own environment. Yet, as much as I struggled, being poor at the university for long years, having been given nothing except that I was giving my overheads of grants. Nevertheless, nothing in terms of funds from the institutions. I was given so much. I was given the chance to challenge myself. I was given the chance to work with great scientists, to have had the chance to meet great scientists, to have been my mentors, some of which do not know that they were my mentors in the background just because I was looking at them. I was, maybe admiring them, most likely thinking, and they were great figures at the Pasteur Institute at the time, maybe thinking that, okay, what they had achieved was impossible. This was for them. This was not for me. And yet, obviously, I was awarded the biggest, award that one can be awarded with, and I got so many prizes. Never I thought that I would be awarded some prizes, which also, into brackets, allow me to say that I realized that actually we forget about celebrating science. For me, it was more about, being judged constantly, and at the end of the day, never taking the, a little bit time to say at the end of the day, maybe I did a great job, actually. Maybe I should tell this to myself as well. Now, actually, the world tells it to me, and I'm so humble. But you work with great people. You will have the chance in the future, and you're already doctor. Soon, it's your task to actually accompany the young, the young scientists, which you were just a couple of months ago. And it's a joy for us to work with young scientists, even if maybe you have had a hard time with your boss or etc. At the end of the day, this was maybe for your good, and such is life. But this is a great, how do you say, it's a great something to be a scientist. It's not like a regular job. Most of you are not French. I mean, it's about working in an international community. I'm so sorry for you because you cannot celebrate as you should have celebrated. You cannot, this year has been a little bit difficult for you because you could not experience what is great in science, is that, it's to talk, to exchange, to also have fun, to learn from one another, to teach one another. I hope you will have, a great journey and that you will take risks. At your age, I was more like the typical French person, thinking that, going to the US was, the end of the world. And at the end of the day, I did it, and I realized that, yeah, it was a step that also changed me, not specifically to go to the US, but leave France and leave my comfort zone. All my life has been leaving my comfort zone, and not easy. Being a foreigner has not been easy for me, because as much as all my colleagues were friendly to me, wanted to make me feel, how do you say, comfortable, for sure, I was in an environment that was a little bit an external environment, but yet I really enjoyed it. And I hope you will have a journey, whether it's a nice journey, whether it's in an international environment or not. Seek for advices, but you're the best person to know whether you have to listen to the advices that people give you. Some advice are good, some advice may not be that great. Don't forget that you have also the chance to, you have the world in front of you. I just say this because at my time, this was the start of the biotechs. I'm not sure that the pharmaceutical industry were taking a lot of, academic scientists. The world has changed quite tremendously. You have lots of opportunities. Nowadays, lots of journals that are open. I mean, you know this. You have a lot of communication around the science, also a lot of foundations. It's all about grants, support of science. So you can do a lot, even though you would not continue in academia. I would like to end up with saying that I hope you will continue nevertheless in academia, as difficult as you think it may be. Really, frankly, at your position, I didn't know what to think, but I knew one thing. maybe this is a generational issue, but we were a little bit more on the rebellious side at 25 years ago. But there was one thing. I think we were not thinking so much about security, etc., as much as we were understanding it was difficult to leave the comfort zone, but we were not thinking so much of the retirement and we were just interested in living. And I think it's important that you don't forget that life is about living. And what made me, at the end of the day, stay in the field of science is being surrounded by colleagues who have supported me one way or the other, because it's a community of people who have to deal with the same issues, who have to deal also with the goal and the duty to really, speak for fundamental science. In our shaky days, it is, important to understand that we have a duty to make the politicians and the people behind the decision process to understand that, innovation, all the let's say the most important, aspects of our life, which make our life enjoyable, whether it's electricity, etc. It's all about science. And that's why I hope that you will continue in this field, or at least I hope that you will make sure that you choose the path that will be about supporting science and having a word for science, making others who are not scientists understand the value of science. There are so many things I would like to tell you, but I guess maybe also some time for questions. Bravo to all of you, and again, again, it's coming back to what I said. Really, the working with people who have the same issues than you, but people who love what they are doing, and people who enjoy, a lot of what at the end of the day, is are the reasons why we are scientists. Think about it, because it's something irreplaceable. It's not something that you find specifically in other areas than really science, being a scientist, whether it's in the academic field, which I hope you will choose, or whether it's maybe in a more applied sector. You have the chance when you're an academic scientist to choose your way. You're never completely free, but you can be independent. And I can tell you that it's a great joy to then, when you lead a lab, a great joy to have the chance to see young people at the end of the day following your journey. So if you have the chance for this, I think it's great. And since you have been awarded today a title, think about it. So I will finish with these words and saying again, bravo, it's great. And now it's your duty to continue. We really rely on the next generation. That is actually you. There are great and important challenges in the world to still tackle. So this is your turn, your role. That is it from my side. If you have questions to me.
Thank you, merci.
Thank you so much, Prof Emmanuelle Charpentier, for this inspiring speech and for sharing personal insights and advices with our newly graduated PhDs. So I'm Sonja Kühn, and I'm also part of the organizing team of the ceremony, and I will moderate the following question and answering session. So I'm pretty sure there will be lots of questions, and as every year, we will give the priority to our newly graduated students. So, but before, we also planned a little surprise, and so we would like to thank Alexander Elsholz for making this happen.
Ah, okay, that's some flowers. I see. What's saying, you know, I'm busy, but okay, great. I do everything.
So this is planned. So
there are some letters. There is a very nice gift. Some books, you know, talking about what I told you about Pasteur. Maybe this are in the books. RNA words, the word of RNA. RNA is everything, you know it with a vaccine, and microbes are everything. You understood it with SARS-CoV-2. A very nice gift and wonderful flowers. Thank you very much.
No, so really, thank you so much for making it happen today to come to us. And yeah, we hope you have a little memory.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
So you're ready for our questions, because actually, yeah, the newly graduated PhDs, but also the web was quite active. So Jutta would like to ask you, could you please share with us how did you start working on what would become CRISPR, and how and when during that journey did you started to see its potential as a tool for genetic manipulation?
Yeah, so I'm going to try to be relatively short. So I always had a line of research actually that was to focus actually on bacterial pathogens causing diseases in humans. So I started my career on antibiotic resistance in Listeria monocytogenes at Pasteur, as you know. Then I followed up with, you know, starting in 1996 in New York, and this was more focused on the wish to go more to bacterial pathogenesis. And then I worked on Streptococcus pneumoniae, tackling different types of molecular pathways, allowing to understand how strep pneumo regulates the expression of virulence factors in response to different stresses that are found in the human host. Then actually the lab was moving to Memphis, Tennessee. Ultimately, I went to Memphis, Tennessee to finish labs, but then I decided to go for a postdoc, really going to the eukaryotic world. So what I understood is that actually at the time I was nevertheless a bacterial geneticist, and to understand well the interaction between the bacteria and the human host, it would be good that I try to understand the host. But at the time, actually, even RNA interference was not really used for, you know, downregulating expression in the human cell. So there was not really, you know, genetics possible except expressing ectopic vectors in human cells. So I said, okay, I'm going to go for, you know, 2 mice, and I decided to work on proteins, plakoglobin, beta-catenin involved in cell-cell adhesion, but also involved in signal transduction pathways. So I was always interested in proteins having a dual role, a role as really what they are meant to do, and also a role in regulation in a way. And so by this, actually, I understood that this was really kind of cumbersome to generate transgenic mice. I understood by this that genetics was not that easy. But okay, I could tackle a little bit some experimentations and methodologies and a sense of the eukaryotic world. Then after I realized that at the end of the day, I'm interested in working with human bacterial pathogens. So I'm still stuck with the lack of genetics in human cells. I decided to work on Staph aureus, and this is where I started my journey, continuing on molecular mechanisms of gene regulation of gene expression, but focusing on RNA molecules and different aspects of RNA-mediated regulation of plasmid replication. I worked on biofilms, and this was in the lab of Richard Novick with the AGR system. So Richard was the first one to show an RNA molecule with a role in regulating the expression of virulence factors in Staph aureus. So one should not forget that the RNA world started in bacteria, showing the role as a regulatory antisense molecule, first in the replication of plasmids, actually. And then I decided to work on Streptococcus pyogenes. This was also associated to my former colleague, Rodger Novak, who was also in the lab of Richard Novick. I decided to work on S. pyogenes. I followed the path. And in my lab in Vienna, we were working on different aspects, so on protein quality control, different types of stress responses, on also signaling peptides and RNAs. so the idea in the mid 2000s were we were working on small regulatory RNAs, but it was to really find new small RNAs. So we started with a bioinformatics screen. In 2006, we found a number of RNAs, including tracer RNA and CRISPR RNA. In 2007, we decided actually to focus on tracer RNA and CRISPR RNA. We were going in another direction than CRISPR for tracer RNA, so we had found a very nice interaction with between tracer RNA and the messenger RNA coding for a virulence factor, so a very nice antisense interaction. We saw that tracer RNA had a regulatory effect on the expression of this messenger RNA, but we were wrong. I mean, we were not completely wrong, actually, it's more complicated than this. But we were also working on CRISPR, and CRISPR for me was really the start of the field. I mean, you know this maybe with David, the mid 2000s and beginning 2010. This is where you started to see a number of papers published on CRISPR. And this was very nice for me because it was related to the field of research of my PhD that was at the end of the day about a defense system against acquisition of mobile genetic elements, including viruses, phages of bacteria. And the transfer of mobile genetic elements was also the goal of my research, working on the transfer of antibiotic resistance genes among clinical isolates, so through different types of mobile genetic elements, transposons, plasmids. So that's why I was interested in this. And also because it was clear as well that, you know, for sure, RNA research has led to a number of biotechnological applications. If you take RNAi, which is based on, you know, antisense RNAs and small interfering RNAs, and also the reason why, you know, scientists was working, you know, focusing on RNA regulatory mechanisms was also to find new dogmas around RNA, also to find new pathways where RNA has new pathways that could lead to new anti-infective strategies, and also RNA-mediated technologies that could be genetic technologies. And so, long story short, tracer RNA was combined to CRISPR. Actually, it took me a while to convince a student to do a
Emmanuelle, t'as coupé ton micro.
Emmanuelle, you are you touched your microphone.
Nevertheless, all my journey that was a bit that looked a little bit hectic for some of my colleagues allowed me to appreciate fast also the implication of CRISPR. I mean, maybe you have heard David, CRISPR-Cas9 was really the first minimal CRISPR-Cas system that was discovered. So for sure, a lot of pioneers who have worked on the CRISPR field, so for sure lucky enough to have started as well based on knowledge that was you know, available, having the chance to work on a system, trying to find out what was different with this system compared to the type 1 system. Cas9 is a type 2 system, and type 1 system was started to be you know, uncovered with regard to the molecular mechanism. And having the sense that at least it seemed to be among the CRISPR-Cas system the most simple and neat system that could be harnessed, you know, as a genetic technology, and then the rest is obviously, you know it.
Thank you so much for this answer. We have also another one from Celine, one of our graduates. So she would like to know, what do you find the most difficult in science, and what was the most difficult moment in your career? If you could share this with our students and our graduates.
Ooh, the most difficult in science for me has never been really the science per se. It has been more the fact that you know, you have to build up your career if you want to stay in science. So for sure, you can you know, choose the path where you don't have a career where you go up the ladder, but it's not always easy. I mean, you don't have such positions in every country. I mean, maybe in France you still have those positions, but it's not the case in most of the countries. So I having understood that if I wanted to stay in academia, and this will be your challenge as well. I mean, at the end of the day, there was no other way than going up the ladder, because in a lot of countries, as someone who has a doctor title, there are no positions available. So you have to go up the ladder, and so so this kind of wondering whether this was something I wanted to do actually. But then at the end of the day, step by step, time is always going in your favor. The time helps you to evolve, and so this was maybe the most difficult part, to realize that I needed to make my own journey, and I will end up in places maybe that I was not thinking I will end up working. But at the end of the day, surely, it was always, a new experience that was very much enjoyable at the end of the day. The thing is, then after the most difficult part of my career, I don't know, I mean, there have been numbers actually, maybe. The thing that I can say is that there are a number of facts that you cannot, you have to know that as much as you can, your future is in your hands. You are the one who can make your career. You're always a little bit confronted to the situation that you have something happening in front of you that you cannot change, and you have to go around, you have to live with it. And the higher you go in your career, the more you're confronted to political aspects, whereby you need to change a little bit your strategy, or or you have to become also, you have to take other roles, other functions that, for me, for example, impair my time as a scientist. So I will say maybe the most difficult part of my career, it has been the last 6-7 years where I became a person. Having to take, I mean, okay, I could have refused all the recognitions, but I decided to accept all the recognitions. But at the end of the day, it took all my time, plus moving around, establishing new labs, departments, institutes, spending a lot of time recruiting. So at the end of the day, this is maybe the most difficult, is that I don't have enough time to be a scientist. So I hope to organize myself in the future to be more of a scientist.
Yeah, I think with this regard, there is a quite fitting question from Jackson, who was asking, essentially almost this, like, if you can, like, nowadays that like the way you went, if you could choose to being famous with plenty of resources, traveling, and having limited amount of time for really doing science. So if you would have the choice, would you prefer to rather be a not very famous scientist and spend your time with the lab, or would you prefer to do exactly what you are doing at the moment?
Let's put it that way. Someone who likes to not go back too much to the past. So, I live with the moment, and I'm most likely living with more in the future. If the people who know me know that I'm always living in the future, even not in the present. The only thing that I can say is that it's, yes, indeed, it's quite much some frustrations to not be able to have the time for science, because at the end of the day, I became a scientist because I wanted to be a scientist. So I have to say that what happens to me, surely it's something that, it's exquisite. I have to take it as nevertheless a chance to be able to, hopefully also take my time to be an advocate for academic science. But for sure, with regard to my personality, that is a personality whereby if I have reached this stage, it's also because I loved being in the north of Sweden alone in my own office, being left alone without anyone knocking at my door, and being with my people. At the end of the day, this is more maybe what is more my natural sense. So I live with the rest because, as I said, you need to know, very important for you because it's linked to what I said before. Now you will realize that being a scientist is a luxury because you will have to fight for being a scientist, because you will have to deal with a lot of things to be able to do science. Right now I have the chance to be at Pasteur, so I have the financial comfort. Not the rest. The rest is still politics. The rest is still fights. I have this chance to have the financial comfort. Now I regret to have the financial comfort, because when I did not have the financial comfort, I was writing grants. At least I had the chance to do science by writing grants. I was pushed to do more, more science. But yes, I mean, yeah, I reply to the question as such, let's say. But naturally, I'm more someone who likes to be, you know, I guess a typical scientist. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Maybe we stay with the scientist. We have another question, like, what are your next scientific challenges now?
My next scientific challenge is to think whether I will continue to do science. The next scientific challenges, you know, for me, actually, this is like, for example, when at the end of the 90s, when I went to the US, I realized that it was really the start of the biotechnology world. So for sure, working on bacterial infectious diseases, all these biotech companies opening in this field, it was for sure to find, you know, a cure. And now I knew along the way that the type of research working on bacteria doing genetics, either you go to, you know, to genetics and therefore CRISPR, or you have also the aspect of, you know, finding new therapeutic strategies. So, okay, CRISPR in a way, it's nice because it's a technology which I saw will be even more complete than just, you know, maybe even being used only for bacterial infections. But the next challenge for me will be to have a line of research to find something that will enter, if you wish, into the challenge of fighting antibiotic resistance. So it's still about having something special, finding something special that will be, you know, a new way to, in the context of you know, in the context of finding new strategies to treat infectious diseases and specifically bacterial infections. I hope, by the way, that some of you, even though for those of you who are not microbiologists, that you understand that it is also your time to understand to which extent it is important to work on microbes, the evolution of microbes, and combine this with you know, other aspects of the host. I mean, this is at least one of my of the big challenges, and certainly yeah, my biggest challenge. If I can continue in this direction.
Thank you so much for your answer. So there is one there was one question from Livia which was liked a lot in our chat, and Lydia was saying that the imposter syndrome affects more women than men, and she's asking, generally women tend to doubt themselves or their work more often than men, and she's asking if you have ever experienced this, and if yes, how did you surpass this, or what kind of advice can you give?
Yeah, so let's put it that way. I think when you're a scientist and you decide to have a career, I think it's yeah, it's a lot of work. I think whether you're a female scientist or a male scientist, and for those having a family, it's you know, the challenges of today are the same whether you're a man or a woman. Having said this, as a woman, you always have a tendency to believe that you have to be, let's say, perfect, or you know, there is indeed this kind of, maybe not specifically, or this idea that you have to show more, that you have to be, you know, at a stage where no one can criticize you. So this is something that, I don't know for whatever reason, but you can talk to a lot of female scientists. They will tell you that yeah, this is something that is quite something that we share. I don't think so. It's not. Indeed, I think I realize that it's a lot about trying to convey to the young girls that you know, it's important that they find some confidence. in another way, you know, lack of confidence. It's not a question of lack of confidence, but doubts, or, you know, it's good because otherwise you don't have a drive. But it is true. You feel that you will be more asked for, you know, more as a female scientist, and I have experienced this. So I was always, in a way, you know, waiting for let's put it that way, this kind of, you know, certain comments or, you know, so, but there is a way to circumvent this, to not think of it too much, and to, at the end of the day, try to be a scientist. And I think in our days as well, you know, a lot of mentalities have changed, a lot of efforts have been done. It remains a world of, let's say, maybe of more men with regard to decision processes. But I think it has evolved, and I think it's also up to the female scientists to make it change by just, you know, yeah, by being scientists. And the more female scientists will be scientists, the more we will see some evolution. But at the end of the day, you know, it's what the society deals with, and it's, you cannot change human nature, and it's as such, so you have to make the best of it.
Thank you so much for this answer. If possible, we would like to ask you a last question before we go on. So Christine asked us, do you believe that the PhD gives us a particular legitimacy to speak in the general public on current social issues? Do you think we have to intervene?
Yes, I think so. I think as a scientist, and now you know, you are a doctor, so you, I mean, except which is not, yeah, it's recognized as a title, but not like a doctor title. I mean, except, and it depends on the countries, but for my side, I'm twice docent, so it's what you call the habilité à diriger des recherches. So I have two of those titles, one from Vienna and one from Umeå. But, you know, you're a doctor, so yeah, after I guess you can be professor, but you are already, you know, how do you say, you are in your legitimate function, and you have a role actually to, yeah, to convey to the non-scientists what science is about, you know, how science can, I mean, you know, can change the world, all these things. You know, a couple of years ago I was thinking it was, but at the end of the day, it is true. I mean, at the end of the day, it's little, you know, you bring always a little piece in the big puzzle. I mean, over very long years, I saw that what I was doing was, you know, maybe people were not caring. As a matter of fact, CRISPR was not on a grant solely written for CRISPR. It was more on RNA in general. But yet, you know, you show, and you never know that what you do, you know, can have an impact, or can be in a field that has an impact. So this, the way it is, and it's your role actually to convey this. And it's your role very soon, as I said, to then train the next generation of scientists. Time passes fast, so don't forget it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much again, Emmanuelle. I will pass by now to Monica Sala and say bye.
Bye.
We are really sorry to have to stop such a stimulating question session, but we have to go on to the second part of the ceremony to honor our graduates. I deep thank again Professor Emmanuelle Charpentier for her presentation, coming directly from the heart. We saw that, and the time that she has decided to share with us. I'm sure that today you have inspired many of us, not only the graduates, for making a very good science and the importance of very good science for the benefits of the society. We are going for sure to invite you to the next graduation ceremony, which is already scheduled on December 17th.